When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Welcome to another episode of Media Matters by Anfield Index. It's Monday, the 1st of July. A lot of the transfer windows have opened around the world. Liverpool have their first transfer story. And to join me as ever is the same as renowned and respected, but newly freelance David Lynch. David, how are we?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, yeah. Bit of a wild day, really. Bit of a big step, but yeah, I'm kind of hoping it'll work out.
I bet. And just in case anyone is missing the news or thinking what we're referring to, David has launched his Substack now, so get subscribing. That is on his site. It's on Twitter. We've retweeted it to Anfield Index. So blatantly, the news, the place to get things as well. And I suppose, is this the perfect combination now, David, of excitement you go in yourself and shitting it at the same time? Is that the right phrase at this stage?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, just to kind of give people a background into why I've sort of gone down this route is because obviously I've been sort of freelancing for a little while, for a couple of years now, I suppose, and sort of found various homes for wherever my writing's gone. But I think, you're never kind of quite in control of that. And obviously the conditions for people funding journalism, it's difficult at the moment in terms of, advertising revenues that are dropping. And, there's not as many jobs out there as well to do this job. For example, when I started out, well, not necessarily when I started out, but I think, in recent years, for example, I was doing it for the London Evening Standard. I was their Liverpool reporter. That job no longer exists, which is why I went freelance. Neil Jones was doing it for Goal. That job no longer exists. ESPN doesn't have anyone on the patch. We've had cuts on the newspaper side of things. So there are just fewer jobs there to do it. So the key is to kind of find somewhere that will support your journalism and back that. And I've been very fortunate that I've been lucky to find places that will do that. I mentioned this is Anfield because they've been really, really good to me and fantastic. But obviously, like anywhere else, it's just, to have my own control over that and for people to subscribe to me and for it to be a bit more of a sort of solid arrangement just makes kind of more sense. But obviously, it comes with the risk of people maybe don't want to subscribe or whatever. So I'm hoping people do. And I'm hoping, the news that I get and the stories and the analysis, the fact I'm at, a lot of the games or every Anfield game at least and the training ground and close to that. Hopefully people see enough value there to get a subscription, but we'll see how it works out. Like I said, taking a bit of a gamble, but I think it's one that, I just think it's the way journalism's going at the moment in terms of, I think, this is probably going to be a model that a lot more people go to. I mean, Henry Winter, he's done that after leaving the Times now. So obviously it's a thing that people are doing. And I think it's a good time to get on board now. But yeah, if people can support it, that would be absolutely amazing and hugely helpful. And I really do hope you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gents, we said the link is there at Anfield Index. It's there on the Twitter page as well through David. So sign up while you can, quick as possible. But quick as possible, David, there is one story we want to get into. Because at one stage, we're thinking, is there going to be any transfer? It was all quiet on the Liverpool front. And then all of a sudden, from what I understand, Newcastle launch us into the mix, don't they? Because they make contact, as reports say, around Anthony Gordon. They try and include a player in the mix, which we're not having. There's not a deal that suits Liverpool, I think it's important to say, at this time on the table. I mean, there's probably a couple of things to work through. It'd be good to almost just to get, like, is that correct or surmising? Where are we now? And I suppose the third part is, do we think this has any legs? Is this like one that we put a red line through, or do we keep an eye on this one as well?
So we're pretty much where we were in terms of on Saturday, really. And so obviously Newcastle came because they had this PSR need and they knew that Liverpool like Anthony Gordon and put forward the idea that there might be a deal there to be done. Obviously Liverpool turned it down because the numbers weren't right. We don't exactly know what they look like. And also, you know, there was talk of Jarell Quansah being involved, which again, absolute non-starter as far as Liverpool are concerned. So no way that was going to progress. But it showed, you know, I think, you know, even with the Quansah element of it, I think Liverpool, you know, there could have been a deal to be done there just in pure numbers in terms of an actual financial agreement with Quansah not going the other way. But I think Liverpool also had another concern, which is that they've got so many players on that left-hand side at the moment, haven't they? You know, they do like Gordon, they make no secret of that fact. So they do really like the player, and that is something that makes it interesting going forward. But the conditions of the deal that were put forward to them didn't suggest enough room for movement that it would make sense. And obviously, like I say, the way the squad is balanced at this particular moment didn't really look like a deal that was worth doing for them. But I think there's a few things in terms of the long term that we've learned there that is, yes, they absolutely like Gordon. He's a player they've been tracking for a while. And I think we also got a sense that the player himself would like the move as well. I think it's becoming increasingly clear, isn't it, that he's a Liverpool supporter rather than an Everton fan and would love to play for Liverpool. So I also think that, yes, it's done for now, and we've passed the PSR deadline now, and Newcastle made those sales, Elliot Anderson, Yankuba Minter, and so that's taken pressure off them. But like I say, I do think there's legs here if certain conditions get met and certain things work out. You know, we might not have heard the last of this one.
Yeah. And I know everyone who's listening to this now will be saying, ask him about those conditions that he keeps mentioning. So naturally, we're going to go there. I suppose that there's talk and the various things, rumours we're seeing that there's not as long on Anthony Gordon's contract, seems to be one element, as people predicted. And also, I suppose it's a link, and this might be 2 and 2 and getting 27. Do you think Luis Diaz and his future has a tie to this at the same time as well?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was being a little bit cryptic there. It was only so I could tee you up for a second question on it rather than just go on a long, rambling answer. So the conditions, exactly what you suggest there in terms of, obviously on transfer market, which is not always 100% nailed on in terms of accurate for contract information. And my suspicion is that would have meant, you know, his contract's till 2026. So that would have meant, I think I'm right in saying that when he signed for Newcastle, he was signing a 3.5-year deal at the time, which is remarkably short. A little bit sceptical about whether that's entirely accurate. So maybe it does run to 2026, but there may be an option on the club side that will get triggered with appearances or some sort of condition on that that will make that contract a little bit longer. But if it is 2026, again, that's massively in Liverpool's favour. If they do want him in the long or short term, absolutely, that will be a huge factor. And as you say, another element is Luis Diaz and what happens with him. So, you know, if the player's desperate to make the move, which again, I think you get the sense that he would absolutely jump at it, would love to join Liverpool if possible, and he's only got a contract till 2026, and you get a little bit later in the window, he knows that Newcastle have tried to flog him to ease the PSR concerns as well. So, you know, not bridges have been burned, but obviously there's been a little bit of an indication of an openness to selling him. Then Liverpool do shift Diaz to Barcelona. They've got that money burning a hole in the back pocket. Maybe there's a deal there to be done. Now, obviously, Newcastle won't have the money pressure of PSR on them at that point, so it'll be a harder deal to do. But I think, you know, if you get the push from the players' side and that contract's information is accurate and the players in that situation, you know, Newcastle might think, well, we're looking at losing him for a lot less in a year's time or in a couple of years for possibly nothing. So, like I said, there's potentially legs in this one. And obviously, like I said, Liverpool are happy to have it out there that they like the players. So maybe they're laying the foundations for something to happen later in the window around that. But it's like I said, I don't think that one's entirely done for the window. Maybe that's just one to kind of keep an eye on. But nothing you can guarantee. Obviously, we know how it works. But I just think, you know, clearly they like him. He likes them. There might be that contract situation. There might be a vacancy opening up on the left-hand side. There's a lot of nice things coming together there for Liverpool potentially to do a deal. So, yeah, let's see what happens. And kind of exciting because I like him as a player, by the way. I think he's absolutely exceeded what I thought he was when he left Everton for Newcastle, and I think he'd be I just think he's done an unbelievable job, really, and really sort of cemented how good a player he is. So, yeah, I think he'd be an exciting signing if it was one that was to come together, but obviously not that time pressure that was there before, but maybe one for later in the window.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, because it's interesting that some people have said, is he the right player? But, I mean, it's right to say he's not an England regular, but he's right on the verge of the England first team as well. And in 35 Premier League games, he's got 11 assists and 10 goals, or one, either if that's the other way around. But let's call it 21 goal contributions in the Premier League in a Newcastle side that struggled a bit, it's fair to say, at times as well. We know he's rapid at the same time, and we love a pacey attacker. Homegrown, a lot of the metrics are hit for Anthony Gordon as a pure player to be a Liverpool target, aren't there?
That's it. So rare that you get players who get, 10 goals, 10 assists, kind of that, or past that threshold in the Premier League in a single season. So, just shows how good of a player he is. The work rate's there. He scored a lot of goals against top 6 clubs as well. So he's, dangerous even in the biggest games, works his socks off. Just got loads to like about him, and as the fact that he would love to come to Liverpool as well, that's always massively helpful. We people on the pitch who will absolutely die for the shirt. So just so much to like about him as a potential signing. But obviously a few things have got to come together, and we'll see whether they do and whether Liverpool think that's the right route to go down in the end. But they really like him, and I think if there's any opportunity there and there's a vacancy opens up, then it would make so much sense for them to go for him.
We'll be interested to see, and I'll be interested to see if this is one of the questions that Arne Slot gets asked at his press conference come Friday, because that's been confirmed, ladies and gents, at the same time. On the other hand, it has the feeling that it could be the Gravenberch saga of the summer and just roll right the way through. We will have to see on this one. And to be honest, David, it felt like this week, from the media point of view, which we like to talk about, a lot of the analysis pieces came around Liverpool's squad. I know you've sort of talked about it on YouTube and other journos. I mean, there's one that interesting was kind of went alongside yours. James Pearce wrote the article about Kelleher and Diaz, another player we're mentioning consistently now, and mentioned the fees around Kelleher, and he put in his article 25 million, Diaz around 50. Is that kind of the information you're getting on? Not that that's a definitive fee. I know you said north of 20 million for Kelleher, but those are sort of the market price that Liverpool will talk at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fees that make sense for both as well, aren't they? We spoke about, was it James Trafford, who when he went to Burnley from Manchester City, coming in at 19 million, and Kelleher is well ahead of him. So that's why the figure would have had to be well north of 20 million and in that 25 million range, because he's got such great experience and he's been, brilliant for Liverpool, hasn't he? So that absolutely makes sense. And with Diaz, it's kind of trying to get a little bit closer to what you paid for him. Obviously, he's 27 now, so you're thinking he's touching that peak age and probably a little bit close to going over it in terms of how attackers work generally. So I think 50 million makes a lot of sense. And again, very much my understanding around those fee expectations. But again, with Diaz, it's kind of, can Barca afford that? Who do they need to shift? Can they shift them? It's just so many question marks over them because they haven't got the financial standing that they used to. So, is this going to actually be a goer. It's, I think we're all sort of in our heads selling him, and he's gone, and Liverpool have got that money to play with. But I just think such question marks around Barcelona and how they run at the moment that you just can't guarantee that's going to happen at all. So it's one to keep an eye on, really. But it's they've got a lot of work to do to get that fee together if they really do want to sign him.
Yeah, and before anyone jumps to Barcelona, it's interesting, even yesterday they confirmed that João Felix will return to Atletico and Cancelo will go back to Manchester City, so they can't afford to take up those options. So a £50 million Luis Diaz looks a long way away as we stand. So yeah, we can't jump to and other players that were mentioned in articles. It does feel like with Slot sort of conducting the pre-season this week, a lot of decisions will maybe not made instantly, but start to be made. And you'll have seen the articles, David. Nat Phillips, even the Sepp van den Berg being liked by Bologna, which will bring a certain left back / centre back into discussion as well. Is that what you're kind of suspecting to happen? Stuff will start to be decided, as in, do we want to keep this player? Do we want to loan him? Those decisions may start to move, shall we say, this week.
Yeah, I think there's easier decisions to make around, the likes of Nat Phillips, isn't there? And I think Sepp van den Berg is that, I don't think the manager's going to need to take a look at them to sort of know what the score is around them. I think those are club decisions that are being made, that those players, will get opportunities and should really be moved on. But I think, there are others I think he will want to sort of have a glimpse of. There's been all that speculation around Tyler Morton, hasn't there? And there is clearly interest in him. But I think, he's in that sort of bracket where he's kind of closest to first team sort of contention. Can he be in there? Can he get games? Is that best for him? Does he want to do that? So it's a really interesting time, because when they come back for pre-season now, it's kind of, let's have a proper look at them and make a decision purely based on the football element rather than anything else. So, there's a few of them that are in that boat, but I think this is, it's a time where we'll maybe start to get movement on outgoings, because some decisions will get made, and there's no need to wait for the likes of Nat Phillips. I think, that will happen whenever sort of someone comes in with a decent chunk of money and that can be signed off. But the rest of them, it's kind of a key time now, really, for making those big calls, and Slot having a little look at some of these players.
Yeah, it's true. Before all the senior players come back from tournaments, it does feel a good chance for making calls on Morton, Carvalho, all those types of players. What does he actually see, if he actually sees them in our first team as well? And speaking of pre-season, it's weird to say, but it's probably a good news story for us as well. I know you wrote this one. Endo, even if he is called up to the Japan Olympics, that is expected to be refused by Liverpool, which by proxy, I think a lot of us took as Mo Salah will get the same, just in case Egypt. It's a bit unsure, but we're on full expectation that those two won't go, or is that a wrong assumption?
No, the story I wrote around Endo is that on the players' side, they kind of expect that he will get allowed to go. So that's it. Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because obviously I've read Paul Ghost's report this week where he said that Egypt are kind of a little bit, pessimistic about the idea that they'll get Salah. Or now the key question here is obviously, so if Egypt don't think they're going to get Salah, is that Liverpool saying no, or is it the player saying he doesn't really want to go? He's done the Olympics before. He's at an age where he could probably do without his season being disrupted in that way. Pre-season under a new manager he'll want to be part of, and things like that, right? Going to play in the Olympics in an under-23 tournament is probably not the great use of him, and probably. So I suspect that maybe something's going on here in terms of maybe that Salah turning down the opportunity and not really showing any interest. Whereas Endo, I think, clearly does want to go. It's very much my understanding he would like to go if that opportunity arises, and there is kind of an expectation on his side of things that if he does get called up, and we'll find out on the 3rd of July, that's when Japan's squad's coming out, and he doesn't know before that whether that's happening, and they don't really get much of a heads up. But, my understanding is would like to go if that happens now, and expects to be allowed to let go. So it's a big call to Liverpool, really. Do you put your foot down and say no? I don't know. He's got to, do they think he's so crucial that he has to start those first, couple of games? Or, the thing is, the tournament ends before the season starts. So he's having a holiday now, gets a break, goes into that tournament instead of pre-season, and then comes back. But obviously then not up to speed with sort of the tactics under the new man. He's coming into that, and so how many games can he start him in those initial games? Possibly not. That's the decision they've got to make. But that, as I say, my reporting on that was that the expectation of the players' side is that he would be allowed to go if he gets called up. So interesting one. Really interesting to see when we get sort of confirmation of what maybe Salah not being included, maybe Endo included, and then what did he do around it? Really sort of that's being decided this week. So really interested to see how that one goes. But yeah, the fact that there's expectation on the players' side, he'll be allowed to go, I think suggests maybe Liverpool have said they're open to it. So let's see what happens.
Which you can probably understand is going to ring alarm bells, because the 6, as we talked about, has the premise to be the rage topic almost of the summer. He's going to miss all that time. It looks like, as it stands, Arne Slot's playing less friendlies to have more time on the training ground, and your only actual number 6 in the squad could be heading off to the Olympics. You could see where there could be like red flags going, and I know Bajcetic might come in as well, people.
I think he would contest that, Stefan Bajcetic. I think he, will think he's going to be a big option this season. But I think, again, it feeds into, are they actually going to do something then in this defensive midfield position? Do they believe that they need someone there who is a bridge between Endo being experienced and the other side of 30, and Bajcetic being, very, very young and inexperienced? Do they need someone who hits the middle, or do they have too many options in midfield? I mean, we've done that to death, haven't we? It's a really sort of interesting debate and a tough one to kind of predict, but I guess we'll get a little indication maybe if he does go to the Olympics in terms of what they're thinking around that position and because you haven't got, even if he goes to a double pivot or whatever, you haven't really got loads of natural options in that position. So it's kind of, I don't know. This is a big week, really, isn't it? In terms of, I guess he's going to be telling the players about kind of what his ideas are around formation and shape and how he's going to work that. Does he want to play with the double pivot or not? You're going to get decisions around this, like the Olympics. He's going to make decisions around players and who he wants to keep. So it's, an awful lot going on, really, and kind of some big calls to make. And I think this is where it really starts to ramp up and get exciting.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the right phrase, big calls to make. Endo going to the Olympics, shape, transfers, player to stay, which means it's probably a good time to put you on the block in terms of a big call day, because we've talked goalkeepers, we've talked defenders, we've talked midfielders, forwards was last week. Like you said, we've really looked at how we see it. No one's quite sure on transfers. That's an obvious give me right now. But probably the interesting thing right now is it's the formation element. I think you're right. People are like, is it going to be this 4-2-3-1? He's also used 4-3-3 at Feyenoord. This is the unknown. How are we going to see it right now? So the question we're posing, and it's a short question, but it's a tough one to answer, I know. 4-2-3-1. Let's say it is that. There is that double pivot. Who are you seeing as Liverpool's strongest 11? Now, I know there's some are probably easy and slotting there. It's probably maybe the ones as we walk through this that to talk about and debate, but there's some will be easy. Who do you see as this 11 if it is this 4-2-3-1?
Yeah, so I think there's a few you could probably get through the team to a certain degree and find a few of them easy. Obviously, I think Alisson, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson. I think it's still, for me, that's your strongest back five in my opinion. Obviously, I think Robertson had a little bit of a dip last season, didn't he? I think he's probably the most controversial one there, but I think he had a few injuries, he had issues there. New manager, bit freshening him up a little bit. Maybe a new option to give him some competition at left back. With obviously some things have got to happen around that with Tsimikas, but it's I still think he's in there. So I think that back five is fairly solid. I think everything ahead of it is kind of probably, some elements of it certainly are up for grabs. So, in your two, again, off the basis of what we saw last season, if he does play with a 4-2-3-1, I think if you're going to have a two there, McAllister 100% absolutely in it. A double pivot might actually suit him a lot better. That might be really, really good for him. And then I do think Wataru Endo is in there on the basis of what he did last season. He's the only natural out-and-out destroyer in there as a holding midfielder, so got to fit him in there. The three ahead of that, this central. Okay, we'll start with Salah on the right. Obviously nailed on. Again, had a little dip towards the back end of last season, but what a player he's been. And I think until you see total evidence that he should be dropped out, then he absolutely has to start there. And then the rest of it, I think, kind of maybe a little bit tricky. I think you're probably going to put Núñez in the centre forward because one of the big reasons why Slot was brought in and one of the things that appealed to them was he's got a really good record of developing attacking players and making them work together and fitting really well. I mean, Klopp did as well, but obviously he never quite worked it out with Núñez, never quite got into where you want him to be. So I think that's the big project for Slot. So I think Núñez is going to be in that starting, and maybe the change of shape, which is something I've actually written about on Substack today. People want to check it out. Maybe that change of shape will help Núñez and get people closer to him. And then that leaves obviously that central attacking midfield role, and the left-hand side again. The left-hand side, is it just going to stick with Diaz for now because he offers something different to the other forwards. He's less of a goal getter, but he can get you up the pitch. He's a ball progressor, and maybe they do need that to bring balance. And then in that central attacking role, I think maybe there's a few options there. Harvey Elliott, the way he finished the season, will be really good in that role, but I still think there's a lot more to come from Szoboszlai, and physically he's a step ahead of Harvey, and I think that could be the thing that maybe would edge him into my starting 11 as the number 10 position. Obviously, the few controversial picks there, leaving out Elliott for starters. Gakpo, who looks brilliant on that left-hand side at the moment for the Netherlands. There's a few, or could even be in the centre-forward role. There's a few decisions you could go either way on, but I think for me, just on what we've seen so far and what I know, I think if that was the starting 11, if we had the first game of the Premier League season tomorrow, that would maybe be the 11 I'd go for. But obviously, the manager may disagree, and I'm sure many listeners will disagree as well.
Everyone will have their preferences in terms, like you say, Gakpo possibly on the left. Quanta had a run, didn't he? Like you say, Elliott. People will have their favourites, the players they like. I suppose in terms of this squad as well, because I know it wasn't the way people wanted it to finish last season. I get that. But a decent points total and a trophy in the bank is always kind of the minimum that we talk. Third place, like that seems I can't call it a great season, but a decent season. I think people would accept that. With the squad the way it is now, provided there isn't any big departures, I know there's contracts and all sorts of things to work out. And I suppose if nothing really changed at this stage, is that the ceiling for you of this squad? Do you think without this number 6 coming in, or without another attacker, the more output as you talked about on the left, is that the ceiling, or do you think you could get more out of this team, or squad's probably the better phrasing?
I think you'd struggle, particularly as you're bedding in a new manager, and that takes time and things are going to go wrong. There's going to be certain things that kind of surprise him about the Premier League, and that's going to manifest itself in a horrendous result at Brentford, for example, or something like that. So I think that probably is the ceiling, and I think for me this season, obviously you'd love it to get a trophy on board, but I think number one aim out of the block is we have to get in the top 4. Can't afford really to slip out of that. Obviously things can change if you make good signings. I think there are areas of the squad that need to look at, and if you get those decisions right, then they give themselves a chance to even maybe a little bit more with a decent start. We spoke about how on paper that start to the season is pretty good. Yeah, if you get off to a flyer with that, and they bed in the new guys, and it all kind of comes off a little bit, and get that good fortune, then maybe you can aim a little bit higher. But I just think as a starting point, really, for me, as you say, maybe third and a trophy is the ceiling, and just to get in the top 4 is the main number one aim, because I do think that disruption of getting a new manager in, it does take time, and I know he's a bit of a continuity candidate, isn't he? But still, it's difficult under a new manager, and so. Yeah, I think that at the moment, as the squad stands, that would be it. But obviously, I think if they do the right work, I still think there's just a little bit of an issue in terms of profiles they've got in that midfield, and whether it all works, and whether I'd like them to move away from a single pivot just to get more control. But unfortunately, the profiles of the midfielders aren't right for that at the moment. So it's kind of, are they able to do that? Where did he find the wiggle room there? I don't know, and I think that's I think it's the definitive call really of the window. The rest is going to be kind of window dressing, whether that's losing Luis Diaz and replacing him with Anthony Gordon, or losing Kostas Tsimikas and replacing him with Calafiori or whoever. That kind of stuff is kind of going to be one in, one out that might make you a little bit stronger. But I think how he solves that midfield issue, and whether that's turning Szoboszlai into one of the 2 rather than a 10, or doing similar to Gravenberch, or Curtis Jones strikes up a great relationship with McAllister in there. Whatever that is, however he looks to solve that, I think that's going to define sort of how the season goes for me.
Yeah, it feels one of those. The shape will be crucial, or be as open as last season, but just a few tweaks and getting the right shape. Sounds dead simple when you say it like that, but there's a difference between titles and not, isn't it? Or competing right at the highest level. So we'll have to see. And probably a few transfer talk or a few stories, which I know you'll have seen at the same time. You mentioned Andy Robertson there and competition. There was quite a few stories, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but Ait-Nouri, the Wolves left-back, linked to Liverpool, and a few stories even had that Liverpool's his choice. Heard anything about Ait-Nouri and think as a profile he could suit us at all?
Yeah, I think there's definitely legs in this one just because I think he's been linked so frequently recently, and obviously Liverpool have a great relationship with his agency, so I think there's definitely something in that. Again, just the issue is on that left-hand side, you've already got two left-backs there, so you probably need to do something about that. I think, I've said many times, I think Kostas is a bit of a candidate for moving on this summer, but obviously that actually has to happen. Something has to give on that. You can't just keep adding left-backs and then, hope it works itself out. Liverpool never operate like that. So, it's maybe something that you've got to wait till Tsimikas gets something, but I think there could be real legs in that because I think Liverpool need, and we'll probably look at this if Tsimikas goes, we're not looking to sign a backup now. We're looking for someone who can really compete with Robertson. Is at an age where he can go on to be the new Robertson. That would be the perfect signing for me. And Robertson then is that sort of experienced head that you can still get an awful lot of games out of, but maybe not as much as previously. So I think profile-wise, agency-wise, everything about him, the quality of his play, loads makes sense about this one. But I just think that there probably needs to be a little bit of movement outwards on that left-hand side, and that will be obviously Tsimikas going.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It does feel like, again, a lot of Liverpool's business that they want and fans want as well could depend on who goes as well. It's not just going to be stockpiling players by any means at the same time. And one that excited a lot of people, again, it's only initial rumour stays. Eze, Palace, think there's anything in that one? See that one at all?
No, I don't think so. I just don't get, obviously I think he's a great player, but no, I just couldn't see it because I just think Liverpool have already got an issue, haven't they, with sort of left-sided eights. You've got way too many of them, and that's going to have to somehow solve itself going into the new season, even especially if they move into this double pivot. The idea that we'd add another one into the mix there, or you could use Eze on the left-hand side and on the wing, where again they've already got Gakpo, Diaz, and Jota, and so I just can't see them creating another problem for themselves by adding a player who, although really, really good and would be a great player for Liverpool, I just don't think he solves any sort of the problems that they've got with the squad. So yeah, really, really can't see that one. I think if he does move from Palace, I think he'll be going elsewhere.
Fair enough. And probably the only other one that, again, we've talked about it before, but I suppose with the pre-season beginning, people were just wondering as a quick one. It might be a quick one to tick off with no updates.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of one cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.